How are you, sir? I am so sorry. I never followed up the call.
You're busy. It was spring break. Did you guys go
Did we
anything?
do that? No, we didn't. We were chilling. We did a college visit on Monday, though.
Where'd
Went to
you
Mizzou.
go?
Went to Mizzou. It's our first time
Yeah.
ever being on the campus, so it was fun.
Isn't it neat?
Yeah, it was really cool. We left early Sunday, and then I'd say we got to Columbia around 2 or 2:30, and then it was gorgeous, right?
Right.
So we spent hours just walking their little downtown and walking the campus and driving around the medical part of the campus and just all over. And then got lunch, took it back, or got dinner, took it back to the hotel, and then Monday morning our session started at, I don't know, 9 o'clock and
Was
wrapped
it a
up.
full day?
No, just
Okay.
about 3 hours, maybe, like all told, like 2.5 hours. So it was a little bit of a presentation, and then we got the formal tour by the senior and all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So she was totally, like, her and Molly were like so on the same page, and like,
So she liked it.
so she really did. She really did, and it was the first one we've done. So like that's the benchmark now.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna
Yeah, it's
get
gonna
compared
be-
to it, which is great.
Right. But you want that.
Yeah. Oh
Does
yeah.
she want to go away? Is she like 100% sure to go away? Or
Yeah.
you know how they are.
I think so. I think so. She so right now she wants to be within a 5-hour drive, 5.5 hour drive. Which when you actually draw that, it's
You can go to Kansas City.
you can go to
wait,
Kansas City. You can actually get to Xavier, which is in western Ohio.
Really?
Like,
I didn't realize
like there's only that piece, but like Xavier fits inside there.
Wow.
You can get to Arkansas in the south,
Didn't think about that.
and I don't think we got to UW-Madison in the north. I think it was just the Iowa colleges. That,
Okay.
I don't know that we got into Wisconsin, but I think we're gonna go to KU in Lawrence.
It's a neat.
We're gonna do Iowa City, because that's just
Yeah.
my turf. That's where I got my graduate
Okay.
degree. And then we're still trying to decide, like, she hasn't said that she wants to do sort of the mid-sized schools like Drake or Bradley or something like that. So we're still sort of, like, obviously we'll go visit them if she's interested in something smaller. Right now, she's thinking state schools, so.
Hey.
Which out-of-state schools blow my mind at how expensive they are.
Isn't it? It's wrong.
It's crazy.
It's so wrong.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like they all double from what in-state is. So like out-of-state for Mizzou is the same as for somebody else it's the out-of-state for us in Iowa or Illinois.
It's just wrong.
But I told her we're still gonna look. I mean, I don't want to, you never
Because
know.
if she finds it right or it feels good, she might want to. I mean,
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Right.
If that's
Exactly.
Hi.
Howdy,
But that's
howdy.
just the hard part of looking at colleges, like how it fits. You want the kids to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm happy that she feels that way right now, and everything else can compare to that.
And that's a good. It's kind of a small school, a small town feel.
Oh,
But
it
it's
really
huge.
is.
It really is.
But I was shocked. I mean, we walked from, I wouldn't say all the way south, but from downtown into the north part of campus, we walked almost
It's huge.
to the end, but not quite. We didn't get to the medical campus as far as walking goes.
Did you have any trouble?
What is she going to school for? Or does she know yet?
I'm not in yet. Okay.
We thought we
Actually,
knew.
well,
Yeah.
am I
Let's
in?
just
Let
put
me
it
see.
that way. We thought we knew.
I might be.
and,
Maybe I went to.
So
No
now I
problem.
think she's really.
A
I think
ponytail?
COVID actually
Oh my gosh,
really
Jordan, has it been that
both
long
hurt
since I
and
saw
helped.
you?
Like I think
In
she
person.
thought she knew
Are you serious?
med
Ponytail.
and stuff like that. but
Wow.
This virtual learning has
Do you have one of those
But you
events
see
where
me
it's
when I
all
have a
gonna?
hat on.
killed all
What?
motivation.
You
for
usually
learning.
see
Like,
me
she
when
does
I have
not
a
wanna
hat
learn.
on.
Oh, so that's true. That's
And
true.
Back when I have my
It's
hat on.
hard.
You're right.
So.
Yeah, and this
she's
year-
looking
this
at
year he didn't get his head
like that
shaved.
year
That's what I was
or
gonna
so.
say. Don't you
This
usually
year
do
she's
an
gonna-
annual event where you
She's
shave?
gonna take AP Psych and she's gonna.
No, I had it. I passed
She's gonna
it.
take a
Oh, you
creative
did.
writing class and
Good
just
for her.
different things like that. I'm like, just go do that.
You know what, though, AP Science was hard.
Yeah, I know. I've heard.
But
I've
we
heard.
have cards that, like, so I'll get those ready if she wants them. They follow.
Stay
I
up
bought them on
till 6,
Amazon
it
for
is.
my son because he was struggling. And we went and talked to Utah.
Yeah.
Teachers it. And so
Yeah.
like, what can you do? Like, what can we do? And he gave us this whole thing of
Better.
like, I found it on Amazon.
now, so-
I have it and they follow.
Yeah, I got a
in the
doctor
class.
appointment.
Oh, seriously?
It's really cool. Like, it
Start
helps
figuring
him,
out
like, it.
what's wrong.
Not one that
Find out
ever
some
got
other
like
things.
C's.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
gotta do some more
And he would
basic
be like
testing.
sitting here just.
They gotta
studying,
take a biopsy
studying. And I took it in college, and I know
Do
it's
some
fun.
other
Yeah.
things.
It's a, I mean, it really.
Hey, Mike,
No,
are
my-
you doing the
my boss got
NSBA
moved.
stuff at all?
And so he's
don't
like,
know.
Mom, I'm like, he's
But-
struggling. So we came
anyways,
up with
that's-
for.
No, no, the
Didn't help.
NSBA,
No,
I was like,
they said
that's
it's
what I was
registered for this week.
They're like
We're doing it
45 bucks,
virtually.
but I was about $45.
Yeah.
No,
See, I
it's
think it's a little better.
Thursday,
Not like
Friday,
the
and
No, I
Saturday.
woke up that, then, so, after all that,
Reinforces,
in the
right?
morning, I went to the
I think.
hospital.
Something
It's
like
the
parts of
highly
it.
National
recommend.
School Board Association. Yeah.
But yeah, now
Sorry, I
it's
shouldn't
happened,
take
yeah.
it.
Yeah, or just even just tell me what they
Yeah.
were.
But I mean, if you don't
I'm just trying to figure out whether we
Oh,
want to
I mean,
communicate it all that.
Give it to
Sure.
her.
Okay.
I mean, if you guys want it. I mean, I don't want I'd rather someone utilize.
Yeah,
it.
right.
Because it was early in the morning.
Yeah, no, she's
The
so
keynote
anyway,
offer's great. I haven't looked through
and
everything.
Don't wait
then
any
it was
longer.
really interesting. So we get there and they're doing the whole spiel and asking the kids to questions and raise your hand and
Went
stuff.
to Mercy Cell. It hurt so bad.
A couple of them like
Jennifer just go with it.
hand shot up, pre-med, nursing, whatever, and she kept her hand down. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. And then when she got around to undecided, she raised her hand. I'm like, that's the first time she's ever admitted, like, I might not know.
And that's okay.
And that's totally what I was
okay.
telling her. She's been so focused on just thinking she wants to do med school. And I think the more we look at colleges and the more she thinks about what that means. And, so many of the schools, like, there isn't a pre-med major. You major
Right,
in
you
something
major in something
to go
else.
into, and so she's starting to understand what
I didn't
that
say
even
anything right
means.
away.
And so
Oh,
she's
yeah.
I
like,
thought, well,
well,
wait
what
till
if
I find out a little more. And I
like,
just happened to be in
what if I
conversation
want to be
with
a
Mike
psych
about
major?
something else, and that's why I told him, I said,
Like, go for it.
Right,
I
you can
mean,
do
you can do trauma psych, you can do whatever, right? And so she's starting to. So I think
I
from
really
that,
kept it low.
so from
I
that
didn't tell
standpoint,
anybody.
she's really.
Actually, I didn't tell my
Like,
mom either. She got really
I think it's been
mad.
good. Like, rather than causing her anxiety that she doesn't know, I think she's
I
kind of like.
didn't know until a few days
It's okay to
later
not know.
that I knew more.
It's
I could
okay.
tell.
And but she's never like she's a planner and she wants to just know.
No, it's
Now
not.
did she go to you guys for, like, Amber was like, I'm
Like,
gonna
I'll
go
get
to
my
marketing,
MRI,
I'm gonna do
and
this.
later in the day, I'm just
Got
like,
her marketing
I
stuff, through
went
website,
back to work,
and
but
she's gonna play ball, and then
like I'm only working a couple days.
and then all of a sudden she's like, I'm going into education, and I'm like, okay,
Like,
like,
where did that-
okay, like I never thought,
Everything
but like,
comes out
like with
fine.
special education.
Find out
I'm like,
sooner than later
even
what's
better,
up.
because I feel
Get
like
it
that.
fixed, but you know,
Yeah.
we'll see.
And it was funny because, he wrote,
Yeah, who knew?
wrote down.
Yeah, you get all these
at the
new
year,
specialty
like,
doctors when you start
he
getting.
writes down like what the kids are gonna do, like what they say they're gonna do, and what he thinks they should do. And he had that in the next year when cause she's
The
so
good
good
line.
with all them. And
Did he bring the
he's
good
like, let me
line?
show you something. He pulled out his stuff. And there was one thing that said special school district. Like he knew
That's
she was not going, and I was like, isn't that something how those teachers know you?
Cake bread
Yeah.
Chardonnay? Is that
Yeah.
coming
So
up?
we do that today. She comes in.
I'm signed up for the virtual part of the.
Yeah.
She comes in the room.
Player mentioned.
She has her Chromebook, and I'm like, "What's up?" And so we just chatted for a few minutes, and then she just sort of sat down and
Okay,
was doing
I
her own
figured
thing,
you
was
would.
working.
I'm not sure,
And
I'm not sure what
said
to
her,
expect.
said,
I know we'll be able to.
I've got a meeting in about 15 minutes. Do we need
But
to
I
shout
don't,
about it?
you know, I don't know how good it'll be.
She says,
Yeah.
so,
Imagine we're just gonna hear everybody talking. That'll be
like,
it.
oh, okay. Like, tell me about it.
At least last year you could
About
talk
this
about
quiz.
some of the other people about
Sounds
things.
interesting. What did you get for your
Not
results?
so
And
much
she
as
pulls them up.
Yeah.
And
No.
it was,
Yep.
like, there was
At least
some
we'll
med
know what's
stuff in
going on.
there, but it was like around the 4th and 5th, and like psychology was in there, creative
So
writing.
Rockwood
Like, there
has
was some
brutal
other,
I haven't looked in the
and she
last
said,
couple of weeks.
and I think it
where
totally
everybody's-
validated.
Yeah,
like,
there are
I
two
don't know.
incumbents,
And I said, so what do you
7
think of this?
people
She's like,
running
well,
for 2
I'm not real
spots.
keen on number 7, I'm not real keen on number
And
4.
it has just been mudslinging night.
One of them was a sports marketing thing. She's like, I don't want to do business. I said, that's cool.
There was
And I was like, but nursing's at the top of the list, and she kind of looked at me.
No, I know.
And
It's just on my mind. It's been on my mind all day.
I could consider that. First time in Bridget ever
All right.
thought about
nurses.
Nursing.
That's cool though.
That's
So
what I
it's
said.
like, I mean, you want them
Jordan,
to kind of like fight
Jordan.
their thing. Like,
Did your wife?
I said it's so cool. Like, so you had this top 10, you don't like 3 of them, so you got 7 things here on the list.
And then she goes, some of them, because you guys
I think
see her,
that
you
once
were
she
kind of
got
like
it,
completely
like,
person
like,
doing
it
it.
is,
Like,
realize.
I could look into this.
Remember last year?
I'm like, just even being open to not
You know,
keeping so
they're
focused on
all
right.
they run, and then
So I told her, I said, take this list.
It's like, I don't.
Like, you go to Indiana, you go to Iowa, if you go to Drake, like, you'll heard this list, getting some say.
Yeah.
What are they good at? What are they not good
We can
at?
pass it along.
oh, that's cool.
I wouldn't say that, but
Yeah, oh,
yeah.
I'm sure, and it has to be good for her.
Because I think she's.
All right.
Well, what do you think?
Who's gonna lead us in our pledge of allegiance? Yeah, we need those kids back. I know.
Right.
And honestly, those nurses do way more than
Oh
that.
my
Like,
gosh,
I
well, that's what I told her.
Like, those nurses are what, like, they make the doctors look good.
We need some
That's what I
skills.
said.
We need
for
I said, I
me,
know
people.
you think, like, what you see or think about, like, doctors and stuff. I said, so she's having surgery on her ankle.
Okay.
And I said,
If it's solid color,
see
it's
Dr.
not that
Gilbert
big a deal
this
first.
year. Like, Dr.
I'm
Gilbert,
telling you,
but
I wear
just
the one
how many
from
times?
graduation all the time. It's my favorite one.
what, who hooks up your ID?
Maybe we'll get it.
Not that I should.
Right?
And then just come in and say, oh, this is what we did, and then they're gone. You see
This-
10 minutes.
So I
That's
was,
weird.
so that just felt good.
That's wonderful.
Because I told her, I said, you don't have to
All right.
figure it out, but
It's 7 o'clock, believe it or not. So we'll call this meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And the flag is over to my right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice to see everyone on this beautiful day. I talked to Travis earlier today, and we considered moving the meeting outside, but since it was such short notice when I called him, we decided we'd go ahead and come on in. It's April. Wow. How many weeks left to school?
8 weeks.
There you go.
A little less than 8
8 weeks left of
not
school.
that we're counting.
Not that she's counting at all, but it's nice to have some beautiful weather for a minute. This is great. So let's move on to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or any changes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have an agenda, and we will start with recognitions tonight, and we have the Missouri Scholars 100 recognition. Dr. Brock?
Yep, we have 3 recognitions, all at the high school level, and these are the individuals that are pictured up there, so I'll be talking about all of them during the recognitions. We'll start out, the first one of our seniors, Jacob. He is a part of the Missouri Scholars 100 program, and that program is sponsored by the Missouri Association of Secondary School Principals. It is a statewide recognition. Jacob had to meet the criteria for the academic decathlon, which included 10 events designed to assure the students' academic strength. We're excited to announce that Jacob has earned the honor based on his amazing academic success and involvement at Affton and in the community. He'll be honored at a luncheon on April 25th. And then there's a link to a little bit more information. So congratulations, Jacob, for being one of our seniors to get the Missouri Scholars 100 recognition. And then the next one we have is the Missouri Scholars Academy recognition. So these 2 young ladies are 10th graders. So we have Emily and Aliyah, both 10th graders that are going to be part of the Missouri Scholars Academy. This is a 3-week academic program for Missouri's gifted students who are ready to begin their junior year in high school. The Academy is normally a residential program held on the campus of the University of Missouri-Columbia, but it'll be offered virtually this year, and we're excited for both Emily and Aliyah to have that experience in leadership. So congratulations to those 2 young ladies. And then lastly, we have several of our juniors at Affton High School that are being recognized. I believe there's 5 young ladies here, Abigail, Claire, Courtney, Madison, and Ellen, and they're going to take part in the Washington University Summer Academy. And this is an opportunity that is being sponsored by our Affton Education Foundation. In previous years, a couple of our wonderful Affton Education Foundation members supported a junior to attend a 5-week residential college credit program at Washington University. This year, Washington University is offering a virtual program, and they were going to support 2 students to attend. However, after reviewing the applications, they couldn't pick just 2 of our students to sponsor, so they ended up sponsoring all 5 juniors that applied and are making it possible for them to participate in this high school summer academy at Washington University. It's a 5-week virtual program. They take a college credit class through Washington University, and it's able to be transferred to the college of their choice so that they get that virtual college participation experience. We're very thankful to the Affton Education Foundation for their continued support of our mission to prepare our students to be confident and capable learners through customized learning. So congratulations to these 5 ladies, but also a big thank you to the Affton Education Foundation and the members who are funding this opportunity.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of the students, and it's not a wonder that they couldn't decide. We have such amazing students in Affton, so it would be hard to choose, and we are very grateful for the Affton Education Foundation for their support and for all that they do. All right, so let's move on now to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes from March 16th and disbursements?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion or any changes that need to be made to the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Consent agenda passes, and we will move right into reports. So Dr. Rockins, you again.
All right, we have just a couple items for the superintendent report. Most of these have been mentioned in some way or another in different communications, but maybe weren't mentioned at the last time we got together. So we do have our second vaccination clinic coming up on Monday, April 12th. We held the first one on Monday, March 15th. So we've got pretty high number of staff that are receiving their second shot. Some staff will be receiving their first if for some reason they weren't able to participate. So we do have that going on as well. And we were able to arrange that in partnership with the Affton Medicine Shop. So one of the things that has transpired since the last meeting that we had, we did go ahead and announce that we do intend to have a virtual day the next day, Tuesday, April 13th. We would probably anticipate needing to have a large volume of substitutes, and so we want to be proactive and just let everybody plan for that day to be virtual so that we're not running up to the last minute, and would hate to have a bad experience on Tuesday with kids showing up and staff showing up and it not maybe being the best learning environment. So we did go ahead and make that announcement well in advance, so I appreciate everyone's understanding of kind of the logic behind trying to do that. The other thing that we pushed information out right before spring break in kind of trying to look ahead to next school year. Certainly we know a lot of the things we're doing now will probably live on in regards to the health and safety measures that we take. However, in trying to help parents understand what our approach is to next school year, we wanted to just give a little bit of information so that even though we may not have all of the details, we may not have everything ironed out, there was at least, I guess, some information on what we're going to try to organize. So in essence, what is our plan A? What is something that we hope to pull off? And so one of certainly the big high priorities is to allow students that want to attend in person for that to happen each day, each week, Monday through Friday. So I know that's something that parents will be curious about, because we also are going to offer a virtual academy option. So sometimes, however we approach in-person learning, that may approach the way some parents may want to choose to participate in the virtual academy. So there's definitely going to be a lot more information this month about the virtual academy, and we have 2 sessions next week, one elementary, one secondary. Our principals will be part of that, trying to answer some basic questions. Ultimately, by the end of April, we want to have had parents provide the opportunity to register their interest so that we can see what level of interest there is in the virtual academy. And so that's something that is definitely high on the priority list to do this month. Some of the things that we weren't able to either offer at all this year or we had at very reduced capacity, we hope to restore those programs or increase those. So certainly one of those is transportation, recruiting more drivers, will give us the ability to transport more students. Still not sure we'll be able to just go right back to the way we've always done things, but I believe if we definitely have the capacity to have more drivers, and so we're going to try to recruit for more drivers. Before and after care programs, and then a lot of the programming here at the Early Childhood Center, our full day and half day options, those are in progress to be restored as well. We'll be allowing parents to enroll for those options headed, here in the near future, so that we're well prepared for next school year. And so those are some things we wanted to make sure people knew. That's the goal, is for us to get those things back up and running and try and get those things restored, while also knowing a lot of the things will carry over and a lot of those health and safety measures will still be in place. So that's some information that went out, and we'll continually provide more details on some of those things about school reopening next year for the 21-22 school year. And then we will have one more meeting before it occurs, but the SOAR Award program will be released Wednesday, April 21st. The next time we'll be together is Tuesday, the 20th. So that program is going to be broadcast on various social media outlets, and so it'll be a pre-recorded program, somewhat similar to what we did last year. And certainly we have a lot of nominees, so you'll get to hear about 43 nominees. That's a record we've in regards to the number of nominees we've had. And so then you'll also get to hear about the ones that were selected. We'll be honoring the Building Teacher of the Year recipients, and then that's when we announce the District Teacher of the Year as well. So you'll want to tune in to hear about that. And then likewise, there will be Superintendent Award recipients as well. And so lastly, many of the folks that are here tonight participated in the MSBA regional meeting, which was Monday the 29th, so the Monday of our spring break. About a 2-hour program that really provided some updates on legislation that's currently being considered in both the House and the Senate, as well as announcing some scholarship recipients, the scholarships that MSBA supports in regards to students that are headed to college. And then likewise, there were a number of topics that connected to school reopening, and I believe we got into some discussion groups to talk about some of those school reopening topics. So I appreciate the 5 board members that were part of that, and then I enjoyed being a part of that as well. And then we have coming up something that normally we don't necessarily participate in, because it's usually out of town, is the National School Board Association. Their conference is virtual this year, and so we'll have the opportunity to participate in that April 8th through 10th, and there's various sessions that superintendents, school board members can choose from, so that'll be coming up as well between later on this week. So those are all the items I wanted to mention, and happy to take any questions you might have or any comments anyone has on those items.
First comment is that the MSBA regional meeting, I think we got a text from, Justin, I think you shared a text that said that we won the prize, the door prize for attendance because we had the most attendance. There were 3 different districts. So, but we weren't really clear, Dr. Brock, what does that mean? We get $200 to do what?
Yeah, I thought it was, the short answer is, I'll have to check on that.
Okay.
I thought it was $250, and I told Claire to keep an eye out. I was like, I know we won a door prize, and I think I heard $250.
Okay, $250, whatever.
And I'm not sure how that, is coming to the district, what it should be, applied towards, but that's what I remember from the conversation, so.
Okay,
Yep.
because I think that would be a fun discussion with the board to decide if we have some flexibility on how we want to deploy those funds. $250 is not a lot, but we could do something fun with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure we hold on to that, and then I'll advise you on what that dollar amount was and what what the appropriate possible uses for that might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then also for NSBA, I understand that all of us are registered to attend, so I think that's great. And we will definitely try to find some time in a future meeting to have some dialogue about what people learned and other ideas. So we'll put that on the agenda for a future meeting. Any other comments or questions?
Leslie Odom Jr. is the keynote speaker on Thursday. I mean, it's like
Is it Thursday?
the original
Because I
Aaron
couldn't find
Burr
it.
in
Yeah.
Hamilton is going to be speaking to us about education or something. I don't know.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
I just wanted to mention that in case anyone hadn't noticed it. Yeah, it's Thursday. He speaks Thursday at noon.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the superintendent's report? Okay, then we're going to move on to the new teacher collaborative report. And Dr. McGee, you're up.
Evening, everyone. Hello. I wanted to just give you the quick update. This is a final meeting, the final gathering of our new teacher collaborative with a number of neighboring districts, Lindbergh, Bayless, Valley Park, and Webster Groves. Again, the focus of this is we are required to put together a beginning teacher assistance program. And since every district has to do this, it really makes a lot of sense for us to combine efforts and share resources. So we put this together, and Valerie did an amazing job of all the logistics and making it happen. And again, as you can see by the screenshots and the reports and the feedback, that again, this is wildly successful. So we're excited about it. We're excited to continue it and also continue to make it better. So seek opportunities to get more feedback and to improve year over year. Any questions?
Is there anything you're thinking about changing looking forward?
Yeah, I like the collaboration. I think there are some Affton-specific things that I want to weave in a little bit more, so I think the collaborative will continue. I think there's opportunities for us to really look at some traditions, some unique aspects of Affton, and I think we've gotten away from that with the efficiency of the program, and I want to bring some of that nostalgia and good vibes back.
I have a question on, I was reading through it, and under the suggestions part, it said the small group reading instruction, the why and how. It said, I was unfamiliar with implementing small groups, and I felt there was many steps they skipped ahead. I would have enjoyed starting from the beginning. What exactly, was something missed there? Did they not understand something?
Yeah, so one of the things that has happened is we did invite a number of people to this that maybe were not with the program the whole year long. And I would have to dive into exactly where that came from, but I have a pretty good feeling based on reading the feedback. I know where that came from and who that came from, and that was purely a staffing situation that we did internally, that we certainly didn't put that person into with the right support. So that is on us. I would not necessarily say that that's an issue with the facilitator, because I did attend that workshop because I am still learning on literacy instruction, and I thought they did a great job on that. But I remember there was one staff member that was like, we have a book room, and it was like, okay, all right, we've got some work to do, that we needed to improve just some support along the way. So those are pieces of the puzzle that we reflect on and we try to get better. Hence some of the comments I made about we need to do some things internally to make sure we're buttoned up, while also looking for ways to collaborate.
All right, well, thanks for that.
That's good.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. And then I think you're up for the Professional Development Committee report as well, which is next.
That's right. So after every professional development day, including the new teacher collaborative, we bring the professional development committee together. We review the data and look over recommendations for the future. Obviously, our main focus with this one is we've kind of completed our professional development days for the year. We've done the surveys that we need to do. What is back to school look like for 21-22? So not to flip the script too early, the amount of time that we have left. But it is important for us to start looking at contracts, securing facilitators if we're going to look outside, and now is the time to make all that happen. So that was a real big focus. And then another big piece of conversation was what's the appetite for teachers to engage in professional learning this summer? There's a feeling of, and this is a pre-spring break conversation, there's a feeling of burnout, and that there really isn't going to be a lot of people engaging in that, but still committing to those that are interested a level of engagement. So we're going to make a lot of our self-paced courses and really kind of have a laid-back vibe, if you will, this summer with professional development, but we are not going to kind of cancel it for the summer. We're going to be committed to learning and really try to support those that are wanting to move forward and also respect those that are truly at the wit's end.
Do we have sort of an overarching topic for next year? Like, I feel like it was trauma-informed learning, and there's a few things, I can't remember if I read.
Yeah, our two, keystones going into next year, they'll obviously, I shouldn't say two, there's going to be a couple keystones. So obviously, Canvas isn't going away, so we're going to continue our efforts along those lines. Equity is obviously an area of emphasis, an area of focus that will still be a big piece of the puzzle. And then also what's called professional learning communities, which is a way in which adults can gather productively around focusing on student learning. So we'll be doing some additional work on that this upcoming year. So those are our big ones, but we've got a menu we'll be presenting to district administrators on Thursday at our regular admin council, and just gathering some feedback on are we on the right track.
Thanks.
And,
Yeah.
well, two. What are the acronyms, the CCI and the DEI?
There's a lot of them, isn't it? Yeah. And it's one of those things like you want to write the agenda, but then at the same time you're like, man, if you're not in all the conversations, and you need a decoder ring in order to figure out what all those things are. So drink your Ovaltine. But CCI is continuous classroom improvement, and that leverages the Baldrige model in order to develop systems and processes for continuous improvement in the classroom. DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is kind of, I just paraphrase it as equity. And then obviously we've done PD. Let's see if there's any other ones that are on there that jump out at you. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I guess I should have known that.
No, there's always,
I couldn't
no,
think of
Kenny.
it.
No.
I'm just like,
You have to ask that, and I appreciate you holding me accountable, because you're right. These are public documents. These are documents that our community should be able to access and they should be able to understand. So that is actually a good piece of feedback for myself, to make sure that we're not jargoning the community information that we're putting out there.
So it would be great if you could revise this for the final document. And actually, it's always good to, when you start your report and it says what the committee is, it says Affton PDC, but Affton Professional Development Committee, so that people recognize that right away too. Thank you, Kenny, for bringing that point up, because there are so many.
There's so many.
Other thoughts or questions on the PDC?
thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next on the agenda is the Board of Education Subcommittee on Early Childhood. And this is Cinnamon.
So yeah, at our last meeting, we discussed scholarships at the early childhood and how they are awarded. Ms. Knoll showed us some examples of how Affton Early Childhood and PAT give out communication materials about their programming. I have it here, in case any of you wanted to see it. We also brainstormed additional avenues for program communication. We did not schedule another meeting, but we are going to conduct a workshop late May, early June, for all of us to talk with the entire board about everything.
Okay.
So,
Any questions or comments on the Early Childhood Subcommittee?
One comment would just be that since there were only 3 of us there at that last one, it was not a meeting where we could even take a vote on anything. So that was part of the reason why we talked about just the next conversation being the whole board, because we're kind of getting to the point where we're going to have to start just repeating things when we say them to such a small group, when the whole group really needs to know where we are at this point. So.
Okay. And we have a workshop coming up and a board meeting next month, right? Not this month, but early next month that we're going to include that in? Or is it this month? I don't remember now.
This month, April 20th. We didn't have anything scheduled, but we've been doing school reopening workshops, and typically that's been at a time where we're thinking about the upcoming quarter, and so that's why I didn't schedule one, but we are going to go ahead and similar to in the superintendent report, we're really going to be talking about next school year, and we're going to try to weave in a little bit more detail about the early childhood center, and we'll know where the enrollment is at that point, and can maybe talk about a little bit more specifics, as opposed to K-12. Although we kind of presume we'll know what the overall enrollment K-12 will be, we won't have final numbers on like virtual academy, things like that. So there may not be quite as much detail in our K through 12 update. So I think we can turn our attention to talking a little bit more, but so that's the workshop that's coming up April 20th. I do think it would be beneficial, as Bridget mentioned, possibly the second meeting of May or one of the meetings in June, where we can have kind of a full debrief about the subcommittee and, you know, kind of what's been talked about at several meetings, and just make sure everyone's up to speed on that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
No, the only thing I'd add is that it's going to be really important for us to get on the same page as a board on where we want to go, where we want this direction of the program to go, and kind of get behind that as a group, so that we can kind of set the stage for the next decade of what happens there. So, a lot of kids impacted by this, so it'd be good to spend some good time on it.
And Bridget, we're very grateful for you to be chairing this committee, and for everybody for participating. I think it's been very beneficial so far, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. All right, citizen comments. There are, as far as I know, no citizen comments for tonight, limited to agenda items. So we'll move on to curriculum. Mrs. Burford.
Okay, 7.01 is our curriculum projects for second read and approval. So these are the ones we looked at last time, 2 weeks ago, which beckoned us back to our older model. And it is the 4th grade social studies and the ESL newcomer class. And we did have a good discussion about that class last time, because most of us weren't very familiar with it. So there were some revisions made as well. Did anyone have any further questions or comments?
I will call out that I did make a mistake and leave off Miss Patty Rotterman, so I did make that edit, that she was one of the authors for the 4th grade social studies.
Yeah.
It was my fault, and I did fix that.
Shame on you.
I know, I should be
I'm
ashamed.
sure
As long as you fixed it, we're
she was
good.
probably really upset when she spent all of her time reviewing the board documents
That's
and
right.
noticed it, no doubt. Credit where credit is due is always good, though. All right, well, the administration recommends, and I so move that the board approve the curriculum as presented. Can I have a second?
Second.
Anything further? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 7.02 is curriculum for first read, and we were back to our new format this time. I trust that you all enjoyed it as much as I did, getting back to all of our new ways of looking at curriculum. And this included ELL Language Lab for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I really appreciated, I don't know if that's how that document was in the past, but it's great to take those three and put that together like that. It was really helpful. And then Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Honor Spanish 2, Honor Spanish 3, and Honor Spanish 4, all by Miss Julius, who has been busy making all these documents. So what questions or comments might you have? I told him I didn't totally trust myself with the Spanish because I reviewed it all in a single sitting, and it's I mean, repetitive is not the right word. There's a lot of symmetry to it, which I think is wonderful, but it makes it a little bit hard coming in and out of the documents. I don't know if you all found that too, but did I look at this one? Did I not look at this one?
Part of the design was intentionally that we should be looking at it from a progression standpoint. So when Ms. Julius was doing this work, and as we were kind of working together on it, the thought is it should feel like there should be a rhythm to it. Like we should look into each one and it should evenly flow into the next one. It should make sense when I'm looking at it and understand the progression from one to the other. So I hope it feels repetitive. That means that we did what we intended to do.
Well, and I really appreciate the way she lays out in each of the courses how they build on each other and which of the courses a student should be taking depending on you know, it says right in there, these are not requirements to graduate from high school. This much is required to get into most colleges. This much is if you want the seal of biliteracy. And I think in this particular case, that's so important to help our families know which avenue they should be going down. So I appreciated that.
I was just gonna comment that the repetition, and the order is really important for any of these, any of the languages in that family. Because you have to get used to the structure, you have to get used to the way, and it just takes a little while if you didn't grow up in a household that speaks that way, so.
Right.
And I really appreciated seeing all of them at one time,
Yes.
because it was easy to really understand and see the progression then.
Really appreciate the format after the last batch. You kept those in there just to keep us from wanting to go back, right?
Just to keep us honest, right? Yeah.
I think this is one of the cases where the scope and sequence especially made sense. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. In some courses, I don't think it's quite as important. Like it ends up just restating the curriculum. But in the case of foreign language, it really was different. It showed us kind of what would you be going through over the course, and I appreciated that. So much appreciation all around. We appreciate it. Okay, if no questions tonight, then we will take a vote on this next time. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on now to finance, and I know we're going to be talking more about finance in a bit, but for now, Mr. McNeil, what do you have for us?
All right, so item 801 is the budget revision 3, and a lot of stuff moving around there, Steve.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff moving around. I'm going to try to be fairly succinct about it, since there is a finance workshop later, and you know, this isn't exactly on topic for the rest of the workshop, so I wanted to have it be a separate item. So, but definitely when we're talking about budget revision 3, we did make quite a few changes as we typically do. So, just so everyone knows, one of the processes that Krista and I go through during budget revision 3 is we take the time to go through every contract we have, every employee we have, every employee group that we have, and we make sure that our budget is aligned to who actually is working, doing the work, what we expect them to do to finish out the year, and things like that. So, as you can imagine, there, on a typical year, is a little bit of moving around, you know, between buildings, positions, hours, things like that. And a year like the past year that we've had, there was a little bit more of that. So we went through all of that, took a look at a couple of areas that were a little more challenging this year, and really it was just because we had, you know, the amount of information we had, you know, when we were returning to school, what certain types of employees were doing, we just had to wait a little bit long for those. And I'm talking about areas like transportation, before and after care, some of our part-time workers, our food service workers who are Affton's employees, they're truck rolls, but we still pay for them. So those are areas that Chris and I feel like at this point, with 8 weeks off of the school year, we have a pretty decent idea of where that's going to go. So we made changes there. That was a decrease of about $179,000 in expenditures for that. Another area that we decreased a little bit was supplies and purchase services. That's a pretty overarching category there. The things that we touched were it was mostly professional development related, and most of it really was kind of shifting things just because of how the year is going. Most of those expenditures I think are probably going to happen next year, and we'll be including that budget. On the revenue side, a couple of areas I wanted to point out. Delinquent taxes, we increased the budget by $217,000. That budget is about $500,000 right now. That's, you know, where we've typically been at the end of the year. That is not a budget that Chris and I typically increase at this time of year. Usually we wait until pretty far into the year just to see how protests are going at the county level. We were a little less conservative with it this year just because of, you know, everything else. So just kind of want to be upfront that our timeline on that county has you know, been different this year than in the past. State aid payments, we increased $79,000, and that's just things coming in a little bit better from the state level. There were some very difficult months about a year ago as far as getting state aid payments, and so that's kind of our projections were based on those, and things are turning out a little bit better on that front. And then the last area, which was kind of a TIF, the kind of closet TIF.
Nice.
So that was an agreement that happened before my time.
Yeah.
And it's something that the district was not anticipated to get. But it appears that the revenue that's being produced in that TIF area is kind of exceeding what the agreement was for. And so, yeah. So the city of Shrewsbury actually kind of is in charge of that and really wants to disperse that to us. Kristen and I are needing to do a little bit more homework on that and whether or not we can expect that in future years, but pleasant surprise this year. So those are really some of the big areas that we touched. One other thing I'll say I wanted to share with you, but just half working, is just kind of on the fund balance front. We've had a lot of conversations about how this year might be a little more difficult in what we know and when. It does appear that even though there are some areas that are a little bit lower on revenue than in previous years, we are still trending better than we thought we would at the beginning of the year. So when you look at the fund balances and operating, we're showing a balanced budget right now. I do think that will end up ending the year with actuals that are better than what this budget shows. So this budget shows us ending with like a 53.5% fund balance. I imagine that when all is said and done, we'll be more around 56 or 57%.
Oh, wow.
Just to kind of jog over, last year we ended at just over 54%. So that's something that is good for all of us to keep in mind. We will continue having conversations about that. And then I'll point out also the capital projects fund, that was budgeted at a deficit all the way through budget revision 2. So we moved around a couple of things, and then surtax, we moved to the capital projects fund, which is where it's typically been the past couple of years. And now that's showing in the surplus as well. So just a couple of things that would point out before it goes through. Any questions?
Every time you say fund balance, it sounds like fun balance. I kept having to remind myself what you were really saying, but it is kind of fun. Can you just remind us, so it sounds like we'll have to have some good but challenging conversations then if you're looking at that percentage being so high. When do we have those conversations?
Yeah, so we'll go over them and deliberate a little bit. I have a little timeline at the end of it, but I'll say that we'll have those conversations between now and September.
Okay.
So, on that pilot thing, is this something we can expect now every year, or is it just depends on how well it does over there as far as business?
So that is, my presumption is that it depends on how it does. I'll say that I don't see a reason why it wouldn't continue, but I think there's a couple of phone calls that we need to talk to a couple of people.
I was assuming that too, but I wasn't really.
Yeah, so before, I think we'll maybe try to do that in the next, few weeks before we get a budget for 21-22 together. We'll try to make sure we do a little homework on that and see what we can find out.
All right.
Yeah, it's also possible, I was on the TIF commission back then for that, but it's also very possible that some of the stimulus monies kicked them over a limit in terms of because they do pretty careful planning to not get in that situation. They're trying to maximize the TIF dollars when they do that. So it very well could be that it's getting to the point where it's going to start coming our way, so.
Yeah, Mike, do you recall how long ago that was that you were on the commission?
8 years?
No, it was like,
6?
yeah. I sent somebody a letter from the TIF. Oh, that was Doug. Doug was asking me about that. I will get you the exact date because I have the whole letter from the school district that was read and.
We had a lot of discussions about it.
Yes, that was a lengthy one. So, yeah, I think they're probably about halfway through the 20-year.
Okay.
All right, yes, sorry, you got me distracted thinking about the date. Any other questions on budget revision 3? All right, next item, that was for information, and we'll be talking a little bit more about it. Oh, no, we have to,
No,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I saw information there.
Right.
Administration recommends, and I so move the approval of the 2020-2021 budget revision 3 as presented. Have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, budget revision 3 is approved. 8.02, the school resource officer service agreement. Who wants to run with that?
Yes, this, I believe, was something that, as you might expect, I think we talked about this about 3 years ago.
We did.
I remember handling that, I think, my first year as I was transitioning into superintendent. So I'm not sure if they had done 3-year agreements up until that point. But anyway, that seems to be the process that they're preferring now, is for districts to kind of make that 3-year commitment and then be able to see, you know, what is it that that we're agreeing to work with you know, St. Louis County Police and in that partnership. So this agreement is one that I wanted to bring to your attention. It would extend us through the 2023-24 school year, so it'll be another 3 years if we choose to move forward with it. And so, you know, our recommendation is to move forward and extend it. And like I said, you can see what's in the agreement. There's an introductory letter that came with it, and then you can see kind of a summary of what the costs are that are in a separate document as well. So that's kind of the overview of this particular item that is here for consideration. I think most of you are kind of familiar with this. We do have 2 resource officers in the district. They're typically stationed at one at the high school, one at the middle school. However, they do respond, and they go where we would like for them to be. So if there's a reason for them to be at an elementary school, they do that. If there's a reason for them to provide support, then we work with them and you know, keep them in the loop in regards to where we think we may need them, if for some reason we feel like they need to assist elsewhere other than just those 2 buildings.
I think my one question, and I think the documents answer it, but just to clarify, you know, a lot can change in 3 years, and we know around the country there's all sorts of things going on with school resource officers, but it seems to me that this allows for either they or for us to make a change, even though we're committing to the 3 years. That's so everybody has expectations, but it's not as if we're in some kind of legal mumbo jumbo if we all, right, if they had a different choice, you know, if they wanted to come back to us with something else, or if we wanted to come back to them. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, I do think that it's meant to be, you know, it's meant to be kind of one of those things where, you know, it should be reviewed annually. So if there's unhappiness one way or the other, you know, that should be talked about, you know, right away, instead of feeling like you're locked in and it should linger. And then certainly, you know, if there's a level of, I guess, you know, where it comes to maybe ending it before 3 years, I feel like that can happen, you know. At the same time, I think probably there should be, you know, there should be lots of conversations that happen, and just a lot of forewarning if that's a direction that one side or the other wants to go in, for sure.
Thanks.
So I think we talked about this before 3 years ago when we were looking at the SRO contract and thinking about how we want to use this resource in our district, and if the school resource officers are helping, you know, are they proactive with education and curriculum because they're in the building, or completely just being responsive? And I'm kind of curious about how that's been moving along.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Dr. Daughtry kind of touched base with the principals in preparation for this meeting. Right now, I don't know that they're specifically charged with, you know, a specific curriculum to implement. I don't know if there's anything that you have stumbled on that they do. It may not be curriculum related, but it's things that they are a part of or support.
Yeah, so the last year before COVID, we were really working with them a lot on relational. So it was a lot about being in the cafeterias, having conversation with students, building relationships with students, building trust. We had seen marked improvement from one officer that we had addressed and said, we'd like to see you do this more. The other officer, that kind of came natural to that we had. So that really was the biggest priority that year. Obviously this year that's been a little bit more of a challenge, because you can't just go sit down next to somebody and talk for 15, 20 minutes. So we'd like to get back to that piece again next year, because really I think that's the that's the biggest piece to the SRO program, is building trust with kids, and a lot of times just having those relations is so important for kids to see as well. So,
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay. District administration recommends, and I so move, to approve the St. Louis County School Resource Officer Service Agreement. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, and then, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you. I like this, since we've been on Zoom, we raise our hands and say aye at the same time, so it's really clear
That's right.
who's not speaking here.
And Justin, I confirmed 10 years ago,
10 years.
2011.
Wow, I told you it was a lot.
Yep. you
All
are on
right.
it.
Well, let's move on now to facilities. Mr. Carney.
Yes, so the focus of this is on the bid award of the Mainier project that we looked at last time. We received, the district received 5 bids, and the low bid was from Trico Inc. For a total of $211,600. We've worked with this contractor before, and currently working with them on the retaining wall. And I don't know, Steve, if there's anything you want to highlight.
I don't think so. So the $211,000, just so everyone's aware, there's a base bid amount, there's an alternate which we plan to accept, which is to replace the lower door that's included in this. I believe the price might change a little bit depending on, there's already some talk about what we're going to select as that replacement beating. And then there's also a proposed value engineering on here that has to do with the railing that goes at the top of the wall. So those things are kind of up in the air right now, but we'll land somewhere right around $211,000. So that's kind of why the wording on the tab for approval is the way that it is. We think there'll be a little bit of change there, but that's our intention.
I have a question. There's a column here for MSD sewer replacement, and I guess there's only one bid for it. Why wasn't there bids for the others, or is that something that's needed?
So the specifics of that are, I believe, the way that one contractor wanted to do it required MSD's involvement, the way that other ones didn't.
Oh.
So there was a difference there. What the bids asked for did not require that.
Oh, all right.
That's kind of why it's singled out there.
Well, it seemed weird, because it was missing over under the proposed value engineering. It's like, well, it's all right, that's fine.
Yes.
My kids today asked if we're gonna fix the hallway on the inside too, once we make the outside look nice. They remember that there's like some sort of a hanger in the middle of the hallway.
I thought we've already done the inside. Oh my goodness.
That little more, could use a little bit more.
I mean, some fresh paint maybe.
Although I didn't even know there was that outside door, remember?
Yeah.
It's kind of hidden there. I always appreciate reviewing these because it reminds me how much I don't know. Proposed value engineering, I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? And what are people looking at? So that's helpful to know that that's that railing. And that it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be part of the bid, correct?
It doesn't have to be.
Okay, and they just added that as a, okay.
Correct.
Is this proposed to start right after school is over?
Yes, and I guess that they will be right on kids' heels.
Okay.
Alrighty. Administration recommends, and I so move, the approval of Trico Inc. to be the general contractor for the Mainier Site Improvement Upgrade Project for an estimated total of $211,600. Do I have a second?
Second.
And any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we have some personnel items, and we have them broken up into different pieces tonight because we have folks that are going to need to step out during some of the conversation. So, Mr. Eicher, do you want to take over?
Yes. So on 10.01, staffing changes, we have We have 8 summer school positions between the Early Childhood Center, the Gotch and Rogers. And we also have 2 resignations, one being a health room assistant for the district and 1 girls volleyball assistant coach. And then we have 1 retirement from Rogers. I'm sure everybody looked over it. So administration recommends and I also move the approval of the staffing changes as presented. Can I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by the same motion? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay.
All right. 10.02.
Yep. Mr. Levinson, can you step out?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was like, oh yeah, that's me.
That's it. We'll come and get you when
And
we
then,
need you.
we'll come get you when we're done, yeah.
Bridget's next.
Okay, so under 10.02, we have 1 summer school nurse. They'll be at Rogers. And administration recommends and I so move the approval of the staffing change as presented. Have a second.
Second?
Any questions? No. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by the same sign? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Please note the abstention of Mr. Levinson
Yes.
in the minutes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I know that was it's funny.
Okay, 10.03 is the support staff salary schedule. I'm sure everybody's looked over it. Very interested in reading. So.
Which we all did diligently.
Yes. The administration recommends and I also move the approval of the support staff salary schedule as presented. Can I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by the same sign? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, 10.04 is the extra duty stipend list. I'm sure everybody looked over that as well. The administration recommends and I also move the approval of the staff of the extra duty stipend list as presented. Can I have a second?
Second.
Bridget. Are there any questions? No.
Well, I emailed Steve today that this is such a nice document to look at. It was so simplified, I think, from how we've had to look at it in the past.
It is easy.
I really appreciated it. It was easy to see where the openings are even. And
Yes.
That was great.
Yep. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed by the same sign? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you. And we'll come and get you, Bridget, when we're finished with this next one.
10.05, the additional extra duty stipend. Administration recommends and I also move the approval of the extra duty stipend as presented. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying? Any abstentions? That would be Bridget.
Bridget, for the minutes, please.
Motion carries. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next, we have citizen comments for anything unrelated to the agenda, and I don't believe we have any citizen comments. I did not get any. As a reminder, citizen comments, I guess we're still doing them an hour before
Right.
But we're kind of reopening some format to invite people to come on a limited basis too. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the finance workshop. And as a reminder, our finance workshop and any workshops that we're doing are an opportunity for board members to really delve into and ask questions and think about topics and really learn about them and understand them better. And there is no board motion or approval on these. It's just really for information for us to learn from each other and to learn from our experts. And we're very happy to have Lorenzo Boyd with Stiefel here with us tonight. And so we're going to, he's like, I'm here, yay, I've been waiting for this all night long. So for those folks who might be watching, we're going to move the furniture around and we're just going to have conversation about finances for the next however long until we decide we can't talk about finances anymore tonight.
Well, that sounds like a dare.
I know. No, I'm just kidding. So let's take a couple of minutes break. We'll reconvene. Yeah. No, I think we just kind of.
You want to stay open? Or?
Yeah, I think we'll stay open and we'll pull them closer.
It's on my door.
No worries, man. I should have texted you.
I was think about it.
rushing at the end of the night.
I'm so sorry, dude.
Molly and Darcy and I were all going different directions, and I just grabbed it.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It'll make the receival that much more special. Thank you, Justin. You got Jordan. Yeah, he came in.
That's right. It's like, that's what I was in my hand, but not as long as it's okay. Feels good just to stand. Feels good just to stand. It's so good.
Of course,
I was seeing the same thing. Like, we did all, I was gonna go talk to my folks and you're out. Quick answer, so. Yeah.
farmers market and
Actually, I'm going to take off.
What do you think about this?
First big public meeting of that, sent back.
Were you there for the meeting that started?
No.
Remember that?
No.
Oh,
What's this?
Oh, yeah, they're trying to ramrod it through. And so I read,
oh, I'm so sorry.
We still have their helmets?
So they do it. No, that's.
and I said,
We still have their helmets, and then also they give us like a casting of the head because they use that to make a helmet.
They're doing, like, because that's what
So
you're
yeah,
done
I'm
today?
sure it was at the exact same place because there's only one place. Yeah. So this thing does a scan, and then they actually have like a head, and we got the heads of them.
Do you? I
Of
hope we did
it.
it.
So we keep the helmets on them now because the helmet was fitted to them on the day. So we have they're in their closet.
I'm like, he looks so big, he's already 17 pounds. He's only 40 and he's
Cutie patootie.
But I was like, he's like, look at him, he got, that's what he did all day.
Well, of course, he's a little slice of perfection. I mean, let's be honest here.
And it was his first time going to the doctor. Getting fitted for a home.
I love it.
And he's so excited.
Let's go, people.
I'll tell you what, Charlie, I swear they didn't get it 100% on the poor kid.
She said it could only be like 3 months.
They did great. I mean, it's noticeable. Ours was, they were always like this, so he grew like this weird.
On here, and it goes over. So
Is,
it's flat.
Lorenzo, is that a seat for him?
So it definitely is like,
I was gonna say, do we need to get, like,
and that staff over there,
She was really impressed,
she's amazing.
but we laughed because she put a cup on his head. It just, it was, yeah.
I'm so serious all the time, nobody knows that.
I know, I knew you were.
I'm the funny one.
and Claire's like, I'm over here. So good, y'all. All right. Finance workshop, yay. We have the documents, we've reviewed them, but we really need to understand it better, so.
Yeah, I know. What I posted, I wanted everyone to be able to take a look at, but there was no expectation that it would be fully understood before we started tonight. So definitely want to go through all of it and kind of explain, what we're doing, why Lorenzo's here, and kind of walk through those documents and tell you exactly what they're showing and how it involves all of us, I guess. So we're going to put a little agenda on here. Tonight we're going to focus, I really wanted to try to focus on debt service and our bond fund. There are two things that we do talk about, we do budget for, but they maybe don't get as much of an in-depth conversation as often as some of the other funds. And mostly that's because they're fairly rigid in what we can use them for, where we get our revenue from. So we're going to do a little summary of that. Lorenzo's going to talk through defeasance and fund balance for us, and what that looks like in our debt service fund. And then we're going to do a little bond fund update to look at, we'll kind of go back to where did this originate and where are we at now with this process. So I know different members of the board, some of you have been here the entire time, some of you have been here part of the time, so I think it'd just be good to kind of take a step back and take a look at it and see how we got here and where we're going with it.
And even those of us that have been here a long time, we need these refreshers. Because I don't do this every day, so
Right.
absolutely.
Defeasance is not part of our regular vocabulary.
That's right.
No, it's not. It's a tough one to spell too. So just a kind of a brief summary on debt service. I think we have a debt service fund, and when you look in that fund, like if you were to go in our financial system and look at it, there's like 5 or 6 accounts. There's 2 or 3 revenue accounts. There's 2 or 3 expense accounts, and really what it is we set that tax rate. I think we talk pretty much every year about how we try to keep that at 49 cents every year. So we set that. That's part of our tax rate setting process in September. We collect tax revenue on it. That is, 99% of the revenue that we get in that fund. And that money sits there until it comes time for us to pay for interest in the fall of every year, and then another payment for principal and interest in the spring of every year. So really there's those 2 major expenses out of the fund every year, and then there's a couple of fees that we, pay some of our partners for helping us out with that. So that's really how that fund works. It's fairly simple in that regard now that it's all set up and running. But getting the tax revenue, when we did that back in 2017, or I guess the election was in 2016, we put that 49 cents out for all of our voters as what that debt service levy would look like in order to get us the funds that we needed. We've maintained that through now. That has allowed us, I guess, on the next slide, to grow our debt service fund balance over that time. So we didn't have a debt service fund when I started here. We didn't have one until 2017. There was one, probably about 10 years prior to that, but that had gone away, and so we reestablished that. So we started with a fund balance of 0 in 2016, I guess you can say. That fund balance grows from tax revenue exceeding the amount of our interest and principal payments every year. And the reason that happens is because we keep that 49 cents constant every year, and we've seen double-digit assessed valuation growth, multiple times since we've done this. So you can see just in the 4 years, I guess, since this fund has been kind of up and running. We've gone from a 0% fund balance to almost 100% fund balance, which essentially means that we can make our payments twice in a given year. So that is why Lorenzo's sitting here. That's why he's going to talk about that a little bit and what that means for us, what our options are, timeframes, all of that type of stuff. So, Lorenzo,
Is it me?
you're up.
I'm up. Well, thanks for having me, everyone. I think my presentation will be fairly brief, only probably an hour, 20 minutes, I think I timed myself today. But on page 2 of my presentation, I'm not sure if you guys probably have that there. So the first thing I want to talk about is the debt profile. So we put this together every year and update this for the school district. It's a summary of your outstanding general obligation bonds. And I do color code it just because I like pretty colors, so I decided to do a light blue and a peach or pear for the 2017 B bonds, and light blue for the 2017 A bonds. So what you'll see there on this first page, this is a summary of the principal only. So you'll see, so back in 2017, as Steve mentioned, the school district voted $25 million of general obligation bonds. It was a portion of it was new money, about $18.9 million, and a portion of it was refunding the school district's 2011 lease bonds and putting those into your Fund 3, your debt service fund, and those were issued in the amount of about $3 million. So total that the school district issued back in 2017 was about $21.9 million. The school district voted $25 million, so there's a portion of that still, about $3.8 million that's still authorized but unissued. So as you can see there, the 2017 bonds, they start maturing in 2022 and go all the way to 2036. And then the bonds that were refinancing of the Series 2011 certificates, leasehold revenue bonds, I'm sorry, those have a final maturity date of 2022. And through that same process, as Steve mentioned, you can actually refinance these 2017 bonds on 3/1/2027, so you can refinance those up to 90 days before their call date. The rules changed about 3 years ago. You used to be able to refinance those bonds at any time that interest rates were warranted, but now you have to wait till within 90 days of the call date. There is legislation, that legislation changed in I think it was 18 actually. And so now there's legislation moving back in place to repeal that original legislation that went into on the federal level to give you the ability to refinance bonds again at any given time outside of 90 days of their call date. So we're hoping that gives, and as you can see, if that law probably changes, I think the 2017 bonds will be a good candidate to be refinanced for savings. The 2022 bonds are non-callable just because, the 2017 Bs are non-callable because their final maturity is 2022. Next page. Any questions on that page? Next page, you have your debt service. The previous page was a summary of just your principal amount of bonds for the 2017 As and 2017 Bs. This amount is a cumulative basis of your principal and interest for the 2017 As and Bs. So you'll see there that from 2021 through 2036, the school district will be paying approximately $27.7 million in principal and interest on the 2017 As, and you only have $1.3 million remaining on the 2017 Bs. And to the far right is the aggregate column. After the 2022 Bs, after the 2017 Bs are paid off, you'll only have one issue remaining, the 2017 As, and that will be your only debt obligation on the school district's books. Any questions on that page? Next page is kind of what Steve was talking about. This is from left to right, your levy report. We do this every year for the school district as well, and put this into actually a comprehensive debt book that we give to Steve and Krista on an annual basis after you make your payments in the spring. And so this is something from left to right. You'll see there the tax year and the debt year. Those numbers are different because what happens, you set your tax levy for your debt service fund in September of the calendar year, and it's to pay the debt service for the bonds on the following calendar year. So that's why you see tax year there. It stands for 1 year. You're levying your taxes in September of 1 year, and then the following year is to pay that debt service starting in that next calendar year. And then you have the AV, which is your assessed valuation. Then you have your growth column. The blue denotes those are actual figures. So those are the figures that kind of came in each year for those respective years. And as you will quickly notice, 2000, there's 2 years in there that were reassessment years. There's 15.77 and 9.57 in those respective years. So as you can see here, the school district's AV has increased over 25% just in the last 3 years. And so that brings in a certain amount of revenue at 49 cents. And you'll see there that anticipated collections right there is at 98.26%. Going to the next column, SARRU is state assessed railroad utilities. We just used a average, basically a 5-year average. You can't see it on that page, but basically the 5-year average, well actually it's only a 3-year average for you guys because your debt service fund is relatively new, but the 3-year average is $47,000, I'm sorry. So we just use that as a 5-year average each year, so you see your total revenue column. We're using 0% growth. I kind of skipped over that. 0% growth, that's a conservative number that we're using in terms of going forward, but realistically what you'll see is that you're going to have growth every year, even in the non-reassessment years. So your required levy is about 33 cents. You're actually, the use of fund balance column, which is to the third from the right. You'll see there you're growing that fund balance each year by that particular figure, which is about $770,000 next year, and then goes, something happened, goes to about $519,000. Trying to test my eyesight.
I'm kind of far away from the thing, so it keeps disconnecting.
He's just testing me.
That's right.
We all have it in front of us.
I have eagle eyes. $519,000 in 2036 in terms of what you're growing your fund balance by. So you can see there to the far right your percentage of debt service, as Steve kind of mentioned before. Your debt service has grown each year by, in 4 years, you're now at 100%. So what that tells you to do, you have actually more than 100% balance in your fund balance column. So that's why that number gets to be green once it gets over 100%. So then it allows you to actually prepay some of your debt. So what you can do, you can put that money into an escrow and then use some of those excess fund balance to actually kind of prepay some of your bonds. So that's what we're going to talk about here today, is taking some of that cash, bringing it down to a certain level, some of that excess cash, and using it to pay off some of your higher interest rate bonds. Since we cannot refinance those bonds, we might as well put that money into an escrow account and buy some securities, and then it's legally off your books. So if we take $800,000 of bonds, they're legally off your books, and they sit there in an escrow account. The escrow pays it. We send these guys a new debt book. They're all paid for. You no longer have to account for them, and they're legally defeased. And they're secured by U.S. Treasury securities, so really little no risk for default.
So if we go along the way we are now, then these numbers on the right-hand column will continue to grow like that unless we do something. This is the projection, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So if you do nothing, so right now we're going to do a defeasance, but if you do nothing, that number, there's going to have to be something that kind of, you're levying 49 cents, you're required to levy 33 cents, you're growing your fund balance each year. It's a good problem to have. So you can either put new debt on the books, or just continue to actually prepay your debt until it's finally paid off, or the other is lower your levy. Those are the 3 options. And right now we're choosing, what we know is that most issuers, there are always projects that come up. So, they just kind of choose to prepay their debt and take it off their books until they have projects that they want to kind of put in place, whether it's, do renovations at the elementary school, high school, or what have you, and put something new on the ballot. But you still also have some unissued but authorized debt as well that you can put on the books to kind of help that fund balance call.
Yeah, and is there a reason why we carry no growth after 2023? I mean, to not even assume
It's
a
just a
1%.
conservative assumption.
It's just a
right?
conservative, we just kind of follow the lead, and it's just a conservative, and certainly we can, so we can look at, perhaps, you're gonna be capped at about 5%, but certainly we can, if the school district's comfortable, we can certainly, discussions with them, if you feel comfortable using 1% in non-reassessment years, 2% in reassessment years. What I see for the most part is that, I never see more than, except in St. Charles County, I never see school districts use more than 1% in non-reassessment years and 2% in reassessment years. You see sometimes, like I said, there's some in St. Charles County, like Francis Howell, Winsfield, that I work with, they use really high numbers just because they're growing exponentially. But we certainly can, but that's a discussion that we need to have.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just wondering, Steve, just from the standpoint of, I understand that it's conservative, but if it's going to continue to grow and we're going to have a conversation about what to do with what we see in front of us growing, and we know it's going to grow more than that, I mean, I have every confidence it'll grow more than 0. So I'm just curious, like, would that impact our conversation, I guess? That's where I'm going. Is like,
Right, so yeah, definitely is an answer. But I think when we go probably to the next slide and talk about the defeasance process a little bit, you're gonna see that we're talking about defeasance now, we're kind of pausing and taking our time with it, because I don't really think anyone here is, outside of Lorenzo, has been a part of a defeasance. So I wanna make sure everyone understands it. But
Speak for yourself.
that's right. But this will not be our only time having this conversation. So I think regardless, Justin, of what that projection shows, if it shows 0, if it shows 1, if it shows 2, I'm fairly confident that with the way things are looking, we're going to be having this conversation probably in 2 more years.
2 years.
So just keep that in mind, that this is something that I think is repeatable.
so another conversation, like we'll make a decision on this, and
We'll make
then in
a
2 years
decision.
we'll have another conversation because something will have changed.
I think we'll make a decision. My thought is we'll make a decision on it. We'll plan on doing one in calendar year 2021, and then in 2023 we'll be looking at a second one.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be something that's repeatable, as long as everything else stays the same. As long as our assessed valuation continues to be at its level that it's at now or higher, as long as we continue to want to do the 49-cent debt service, which is something that we haven't, looked at, as long as we don't issue new debt. Those are kind of all the things. As long as those are kind of constants, then this is a conversation that's going to continue to come up, and will just be, I guess, a natural cycle that happens for Affton.
Yes, and I think, as Steve mentioned, kind of piggybacking on what he said, this is not unless something drastic happens, this is inevitable that we'll be back at this table in 2 years doing another defeasance. It's just the way and you saw the numbers, 49-cent levy, 33-cent required levy, 16 cents over. You're going to continue to grow your fund balance. You're going to have wonderful opportunities to use some of that cash to pay off your debt and keep your levy where it is.
Right.
Not unless your assessed valuation goes down 30%, which it can happen. I live in a school district where it did happen, 7 years ago, so that would change that.
So,
And just to clarify, the tax rate, we're assuming keeping it the same, but that is something that we also discuss.
So, right, so that is an option every year. So it's always been, since we've kind of, originally done this with the voters in 2016, it's always been my recommendation that we keep it constant at 49 cents. And really the reason is it allows you a lot of flexibility. Once you lower that, you're kind of stuck at that lower rate and until you go back out for another vote and increase it. So as long as the district has on its mind that, maybe at some point in the future, we might want to do something that requires us to sell more debt. I don't know if there's any plans right now, but it's also not something that I think we should be quick to cross off.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a rollback.
It's
49 cents is a rollback already.
It's 49 cents is not rolled back. So that's on the operating. This 49 cents is its own standalone thing. That we set it for the first time in 2017, and we've set it at that same rate every year since. And that's kind of always been my recommendation is let's keep it there. It's what the voters expect. You can see in Lorenzo's projection on that required levy that even with very similar debt payments every year, that there are, you know, a couple cent differences from year to year. So, you know, you definitely can make changes like that, but, you know, it's kind of my opinion that if everyone anticipates the 49 cents, you're protecting the district from being in a situation where we're cutting ourselves too close and not being able to make our debt payments, and you're also allowing us the flexibility for, you know, any sort of future decisions that we might have. And, you know, and talking about the defeasance and being able to pay our debt off early, you know, that's, I guess, just an added bonus of where we're at right now.
And I would say most school districts probably, once they got into this cycle in 2017, you know, the reason why most school districts are, and I would say probably issuers, not just school districts. I work with fire districts and cities. They kind of keep their levy because every 3 to 5 years, school districts are a little bit more than most, but every 3 to 5 years, they're looking at their capital improvements and putting a new bond issue on the ballot. So this allows you to kind of go back and do it at no tax rate. It's not a no tax increase, but a no tax rate increase at some point in the future. If you don't decide to do that, then we'll just be back paying off debt early and being fiscally responsible that way until decisions are made. But in 2023, you know, we'll be back at this table again.
Right, and so that's a different situation than we were in 2016 when we went for the campaign, right? We didn't have a debt service levy at all. We needed to sell $25 million worth of debt. And working with Lorenzo, we established that 49 cents is the, you know, the tax rate that would generate the revenue that would cover that debt payment. So that's where that 25 million came from. When you look at that required levy and the gap between that and 49 cents, that's what Lorenzo's talking about with doing the no tax increase bond issue. So as that gap widens, the amount of debt that you can sell at that same tax rate stays the same. So
You can do around
it does
20
extend
million.
that into the future. It would keep that 49 cent rate going. But it would definitely, you know, you would be able to sell, say, $10 million worth of bonds.
You want me to tell you how much?
You can tell me how much.
About 19 million.
About 19. There you go.
In 23. In 23.
So, so that's what we're talking about with the flexibility. Do we have plans to sell $19 million worth of bonds right now? No.
No.
But the second that you decide to lower that tax rate to 35 cents instead of 49, then that option is out the window, and you're talking about going back to your voters with another tax increase bond issue.
And the voters intended for us to pay it off with it, so I mean, that's what it's for.
Right.
And so the next page after this is kind of the summary of bonds to fees. Right now, we're looking to pay off about $830,000 of the 2036 maturity, which has a 5% coupon. So we would take about $1 million out of your debt service fund to pay off $830,000. Because obviously, you know what happens, you're putting money to an escrow that earns 90 basis points or 0.9%. And so you're paying off bonds that are, you know, at 5%. So you'll have to actually put a little bit more into the bank, into the escrow account to, if you're only earning 1%, I'm just going to round up. The escrow, I think, was earning 0.91%. If you're only earning 0.91%, but you're paying off bonds at 5%, you need to put a little bit more than $830,000 into the account to pay off those bonds. So you need to put a little bit over $1 million in there. So we would take $1 million out of your debt service fund and then actually, you know, pay off $830,000 of your 2017 A's, the 2036 maturity.
So, and just so everyone knows with that, we did they weren't bonds that we were paying off, they were lease purchases, but when we did this in 2017 and we paid off some of our old capital leases, we did a similar process. And what Lorenzo's talking about, that gets, you know, verified by auditors and things like that. So that entire process of trying to pick the exact dollar amount that we need to put into escrow in order to make sure that they get paid off, that's not like me guessing. It's, you know, it gets verified by everyone, and it's, you know, everything is kind of signed, sealed, and delivered with that, you know, during the initial process.
That's a song.
It is.
Signed, sealed, delivered. I like that. And so obviously as interest rates go up, the less you need to put into that escrow, you know, so that's how it kind of works. If you're able to earn 3%, maybe you don't have to put in $1 million to pay off $830,000. You know, maybe if you only put in $900,000. So the next page shows you what the fund balance will look like. Your levy report, I think it's called After Proposed 2021 Defeasance. you'll see there that we take about $1 million, $1,036,000 out of your fund balance. And you'll see there, as Steve mentioned, back in 2003, you're basically buying yourself 2 years, and then it goes back to green, where it's over 100%. So we'll be back at this table again either, I would say in 2022, you'll be talking about what do we want to do? Do we want to do another defeasance next year? Do we want to do that 19 million that Lorenzo told us about? Projects could we do?
I wonder which one Lorenzo wants us to do.
I like selling bonds. So we just kind of go that route. But actually, so we'll just kind of see what the future holds. And so we'll go back to 2023, and that number, we may need to do more than $1 million at that point, because you get to about 127%, but we'll kind of make that decision, and I think we can do another 2 years if you guys decide to wait and pay off some debt another 2 years, and then come back to the drawing board in 2025. But it's a good.
So you can see on there the numbers that Lorenzo put as like the amount of fees. It was intentionally picked so that we can go from being close to 100% of a fund balance in this to next year we would be at 30% after we do this. So we set our goal at 30% essentially to have in there, and that's just trying to make sure that we still have enough in there to make any sort of payment that we want in case something happens that we're not aware of, but puts us in a position to kind of hold off another defeasance and hopefully 2 more years.
Yep. And then the next page is kind of a sample defeasance timeline. This is kind of this is probably a slowed down defeasance timeline, but actually I think it probably will take about half the time that you see, but just to kind of for giggles. It's about a 5-week process as you see it here, but certainly can be done probably in 4 weeks. But there will be documents that will be drafted by the bond counsel, Gilmore and Bell. They'll send those documents in. The district's original bond issue was into the direct deposit agreement, so there are revision of those documents, the state aid payments that were coming out. There'll be revision of all those documents. We'll do the financial analysis so that we can purchase the escrow securities. There will be a third-party verification firm that'll come in and verify our numbers to make sure that the amount of money that we're putting to the escrow based on the securities that are in the escrow and the amount that they earned are sufficient to pay the principal and interest as they become due. So we do all those things up front, and then we would close probably, we're estimating, actually it's the day before my birthday, so that's a happy birthday to me. Birthday, in case anybody wants to know, my birthday is September 24th. So just mark that on your calendars now, everyone.
Well, it's a matter of public record now.
Yeah, it's a matter of exactly. I'll be getting gifts forever from Affton. Yeah, exactly. I'll be taking you out. So the next page, just want to kind of give you, defeasances are a very common occurrence actually, especially when you have the growth that you guys have had. But you'll see we've done defeasances for lots of different, I wanted to put, the sample from 2016 of who we've done defeasances for. We've done them for cities, as you can see, Berkeley, for school districts, St. Charles, fire districts, Eureka. Done them, both on the west side of State Hickman Mills. So we do them all the time for folks, and it's a pretty common occurrence. Most people take the route of paying off debt instead of lowering their debt service levy. And then I believe that was it. That was the end of my presentation, and open up to any questions. So it's just a matter of deciding if that's the route you guys want to take on.
Yeah, so I had a couple of things that I was kind of going to talk about, but if anyone has any questions for Lorenzo, I'm sure he's happy to talk about them, or you guys want me to continue and we can wait for questions at the end? We can do that too. Okay. All right, so I was going to talk just a little bit about our bond funds update. So the reason we have debt in the first place is, we're selling bonds so that we can do projects, right? Just kind of going over the time frame, the history of what's kind of occurred in the last few years, and Lorenzo did touch on this. We sold $25 million worth of bonds in November 2016. So that was approved by voters then. That's when that tax rate was approved. From that, we actually sold $21.9 million. So That was done in January of 2017, and their 20-year bonds. We do still have $3 million that have been approved by voters that are just kind of sitting there waiting to be sold. So it's not money that, that's sitting in one of our bank accounts. There's a process that would have to be gone through in order to access those. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next couple of slides too. But as of right now, I guess I'll say we don't really have plans for what those funds would be used for.
We don't have a time frame.
And we don't, right. And there's no time frame for when they have to be sold. So that's the big thing is once we sell those bonds, you're reasonably supposed to use them in, is it 3 years?
3 year period.
3 years. And so we're still working on selling the very last part of the $21 million. That's what's happening with our high school wall right now, and we're, I think, on year 4. So we're maybe a little bit over there, but those should be going fairly soon. So of that 21.9 that we did sell in 2017, almost $15 million of that was to retire old debt. And so those were capital leases, and just for anyone who kind of wasn't around as we were shaping what that proposition would look like and what we were doing, those capital leases were actually paid out of our capital projects fund. So when we were going to set our tax rate every year, and we have that frequent conversation about how much are we going to put in operating, how much are we going to put in capital projects. Well, we were requiring at that time about $1.6, $1.7 million in our capital project fund just to pay the capital lease debt. And at that time, we were in kind of dire straits with our fund balance, getting into the low teens, really in kind of a tough spot. And we felt like that being in our capital projects fund, those capital leases were kind of really hamstringing what we could do with those tax rates when we went to set them every year. And that was because we didn't have that debt service tax rate that we could set separate of everything else, right? As soon as we were able to do that, that definitely allowed that flexibility. So that $15 million, we immediately retired upon issuance. So Lorenzo, just like the defeasance, it went into escrow, it came off our books, all of that at that time, and became part of our debt service fund, part of that 49-cent levy. We got about $8.9 million in new money to do new projects with, and at that time, we had not done anything to Gotch, we hadn't done anything to Rogers, so we had just finished doing the main year front entrance, the main year addition, the main year library. So that project had just been completed, but we had worked with our architects for kind of a district-wide plan on improvements that we wanted to do, and kind of didn't have any money to spend on it. So that was what we were going for. And then this is just kind of a little caveat, I guess. But since then, back in better interest times, we were able to get about $300,000 through investing our bond funds, kind of while they were sitting in our bank account waiting for $9 million in new money right now. And this is kind of a pie chart of what did we spend it on. So the majority of that was the Gotch addition and renovation, and that included the new gym, infilling the old gym with 2 levels, the new front entrance, all kinds of corridor work. I mean, it was really a facelift for almost the entire building. So that's what we spent 60% of that on. Rogers, which everyone should pretty much be familiar with, we just finished that project with the front entrance and renovations there. And then the retaining wall that's currently happening at the high school, we're at 11%, which is just a portion of that project, but it's kind of with the funds that we have remaining. And the security upgrades are a few years ago, and they were really kind of key card access. We did district-wide key card access and cameras. It was a fairly small project, but one that kind of brought us into modern times as far as door security went in our district. And I also kind of wanted to show what we were thinking at the time that we planned this and what's happened now. So when we were originally planning this, and I actually kind of remember this, the day that we sold the bonds, several of us went down to Stiefel's offices, and we were talking through the time frame of when we were going to do these things. We were working with about an $11 million estimate to do the Gotch addition and renovations and the Rogers addition and renovations. So when we originally sold these bonds, we withheld that $3 million intending to get gotch done. And then we thought we were going to have to wait a year to keep our 49-cent tax rate where it needed to be. And then we were going to go back and sell the remaining $3 million so that we could do Rogers. That was how we were going to use the entire $25 million that we originally asked the voters for. So just through changes to the projects, bids coming in better, things like that, the actual cost of those projects ended up being $8 million. So you can see we came in kind of $3 million under, I'll say under budget, under our original estimations that we worked with our architects on. So that's why we now have that $3 million that's sitting there waiting to be sold and waiting for our project to kind of earmark it for. And it's also why we were able to pay for $1 million of the high school wall out of funds that we didn't think were going to be available for that purpose. So just kind of wanted to bring that up so everyone kind of knows, what were we thinking? How are we here now? And that's the situation we're in. The final funds from that first sale, from that 2017 sale, they're going to be spent this summer. I was going to put during this fiscal year. It's going to be just a timing thing, whether or not we get the pay applications in June or July, but they'll be gone. They'll be gone before school starts in August for sure. So we're working on that now. And then wanted to show you our debt margin on the next page, our debt margin chart that, we include this in every budget document that we give you. And this is just showing, the purple section is what we have available to sell. That amount changes year to year based on our assessed valuation. That amount is based off of 15% of our assessed valuation. That gray section is what we have sold. So you can see it started with that $21.9 million in 2016-17, and it's gone down a little bit each year as we've made principal payments on it. And then the $3 million little slice in there is that amount of money we've approved but haven't sold yet. So you can see at this point, before we sold anything, we had a $55 million debt margin, I guess, that we could have, possible debt that we could have sold, and we're at $48 million today, and that's with everything that we've sold. So that's kind of a result of our increased assessed valuation and our principal payments kind of taking that down a little bit. So just wanted to stop and take a second to explain that, because I know you guys see it 4 times a year, but that's kind of what we're trying to show you when we're putting that in there. And then going forward, this is what we talked about a little bit. So I used our typical processes and Lorenzo's, potential timeline for a defeasance to kind of talk about, what is the board's involvement in this? When are these things going to happen? So, first step, we're going to have a preliminary budget for 2021, 2022 at the next board meeting. So that'll be for information only. It'll be mostly a summary at that point, but we'll have that ready for you at that point. Then June 15th is the second board meeting in June this year. That's when we'll have you adopt the 2021-2022 budget. Then we'll do a tax rate workshop in fall of 2021. I don't know if that'll be August or first meeting in September. It's usually right around there, and we'll talk about tax rates and we'll talk about the assessed valuation and things like that. While that's going on, we'll also probably be working on this defeasance. So with Lorenzo's timeline on September 7th, we'll have the defeasance approval here at the board meeting, so everyone will kind of take part in that process, see what the actual numbers turn out to be once everything's kind of getting finalized. We'll be towards, I guess, the latter end of that process. And then that next meeting on September 21st is when we'll do the tax rate approval for September 21st. So from Krista and I's office, that's kind of what you're going to see from us over the next few months of timeline, and really, really big picture, the things that are coming your way and when you can expect some of those things to happen. Okay, that's everything that I have to. Questions?
That's it?
That's it.
It's great to be reminded of the project projects coming in under what we expected. I mean, how often do you say, well, we had these 2 huge building projects and we thought it would be this much, but it was actually $3 million less than we expected. I had totally forgotten that.
Yeah. Well, and I guess full disclosure on that, the scope of what we did at Gotch, what we originally intended with the architects when we went back to actually phase that out and do the construction projects, I think we cut a thing or two. There was going to be some very large cafeteria situation that would have cost a lot more than what we ended up doing in there. We kind of realized that by, shuffling some things around and doing a facelift in there, that we could save potentially a lot of money by keeping the same footprint of that area. So it was through decisions like that, and bids coming in better, that's kind of how we got there.
Yeah, we were talking storm shelter too.
Yeah.
We were originally talking storm shelter for the gym. That did not happen.
I think it's important to remember also, because you sit there as we represent the public, and the public wants to give us the right amount of money for us to do what we need to do. But now you start seeing that we've got overages. But it's not to any fault or misappropriation per se. It's a matter of economy is doing well for us. The assessed valuations are doing well. And these are things that we have to see. Just for those, in video who may be seeing this, is not that we ask for too much and now we're just trying to spend a little bit, but we're still sitting here. This is all based on economics and your birthday in September.
Yes,
and
exactly right.
Things like that. So just for noted purposes.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you think about the context, I mean, we're doing this in 2015, 2016 as far as the propositions go. We're starting these numbers in 2017. We're just coming out of a recession and a housing bubble, and think about what our assessed values were at that time. And so those have, I think, significantly increased between 2012, 2017, and now, and just from what our thinking is, we've got, at least one, probably 2 new subdivisions in the district. Now, we've got another one coming online that isn't reflected in this at all, which is where my question about AV was coming from. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it's just, there's only good community, Affton community things happening that are pointing to why we have these numbers, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly right.
I think that's, and the fact that we're having conversations about defeasance and the opportunity to do this on a rolling basis, or look at other opportunities for projects in 2 years or 5 years or whatever, I just think speaks to, our financial stewardship, that we've been seeing over the last several years, so.
Steve, let me ask, I think I know the answer, but when those $3 million in bonds that we have not sold, when does that window close?
It doesn't.
Like, ever? Not even at the end of the 2036?
No.
Okay.
So we go to the public to approve the sale of those, but do so in a no rate increase?
The public already approved it. It would be the board approving the sale of them, and us going through the same sale process that we did in January of 2017.
So what were you saying about, I feel like there was a question about a no rate increase of something, and I thought that was related to the 3, but apparently it's not.
No, right, so what happened, the school district voted 25 million, they only used 21.9. You have a little over 3 million of unused that's already been voted upon by the public. So you can use that at any given time. The board would just have to authorize you, and you just have to have projects to use it on. It actually has to be within the original ballot language that was approved back in November 2016. Mm-hmm. The other issue is that in 2023, if you decided to actually want to issue new bonds and put something to the voters, you can do about 19 million.
Yeah, gotcha.
And but if you use 3 million, you can go for 16 million. Just kind of, you can.
Gotcha.
That's about 19 million of what I call, and that's including the 3 million unused. So you can actually go to the voters for about 16 million.
Okay, right, that makes sense. And so that's what the ask is, Justin.
Yep, I got you. Yep, perfect.
And we've talked about this in previous meetings, but not as much tonight. That you know, in the past, we've had a charrette process with buildings, we've had things like that, and we're kind of coming to a close, I guess, on our previous one, so I say there's no plans for that right now. Those are things that would need to be addressed in some way or other. You know, we have a facilities committee right now that's, you know, making their round of buildings, making recommendations for what they see, things like that, but we don't necessarily have any sort of official, you know, future district building plan as of now that would require us to go out and ask for anything. We really don't even have that for the $3 million. So there's work there to be done before we would be in that situation. That being said, I think we're getting there on kind of on the timeline. When you look at our project list and things that we've crossed off that have been on the list for a long time, we're getting to that point where we're gonna need to talk about what does the next list look like.
There are a lot of roofs out there.
There's a ton of roofs out there. There's a ton.
A lot at the high school.
That's just the high school we're talking about, yeah.
We have so many roofs at the high school, Lorenzo, you have no idea.
Spanning decades.
And they have gravel on them.
Well, last time when we went through the CSIP process is when we shared with the community a lot of the building projects. 'Cause I was exposed to both things in this room on the same night. We had the renderings of the buildings and we were talking about the CSIP process at the same time with the community, so.
I think that process, was done in the early, Mike and Patricia, you probably know the dates of this. 2012, 2013 is what I'm thinking is probably the years that charrette process was done. I know it was done before I started in 2014.
Yeah, because I came on board in 2011.
You were here for that?
Right, yeah, it was right after that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because then it was probably 15 when I was first exposed to all of it.
Yep.
Because then in 16 is when I was working on the proposition, so.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. It's good news.
Okay, well, yep, that's everything we have.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Are you guys staying?
No, I think you're good.
Are you guys staying around?
But there's your part of the meeting, but you're good to go.
All right, well, thank God.
You want to leave us?
Not really, not really.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
It's really helpful, and
Yep.
thank you for answering our questions.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks for.
Where are you taking us, Lorenzo?
Just I'll surprise you.
Okay. Okay, so, good workshop. And, thank you for all the preparation for that. These are really important conversations, and it helps us all understand a little bit to be, I know every time that we do any kind of workshop, I learn something that I've heard before, that I understand it a little bit better. So, board comments. We can do board comments tonight before we go into executive session. So why don't we start with Justin?
Yeah, just real simple, because it was my theme from a moment ago. Steve and Krista, thank you for the workshop. I think this stuff could be so dense and so like in the weeds and hard to understand, and just I think the graphics and the conversation was just really clear and helpful, and I just encourage you guys to keep, you know, pushing the envelope on what that looks like for us as a board, but I think also for the community. I think, you know, Jordan's comments and my comments and you know, Mike's, and just sort of thinking about how this looks, you know, and the uncertainty of people saying, well, wait a minute, you know, I thought we were doing this, it looks like we're doing that, what happened, I think is important to be able to communicate that to a variety of audiences, and I think you guys are doing a great job with that.
Totally agree. I learned so much tonight. Is it my turn?
It's your
I learned so much this evening. I'm like overwhelmed, but I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations to Jacob, the Missouri Scholar 100 recognition, 2 young ladies that went on to the Missouri Scholars Academy, and then the other, the other 5 young ladies that got their awards, and I went to the WashU school, and then also look forward to the SOAR awards, and thank you for the finance workshop. I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate the hard work and the effort in that. And, thank you.
Okay, I'll be brief for myself. It's not possible, I apologize. No. First and foremost, Krista, Steve, thank you. I mean, it's a recurring thing, but I think you guys, especially since you started adding more pictures back when I first came on, is helpful. But that, along with Lorenzo coming in, is to you, like Justin said, it just makes it so much more transparent, and it also makes us understand, because that's not all of us is our expertise, but we do understand it when you do that for us, and your hard work is super appreciated. So thank you for that. Much like Kenny said, the Missouri Scholars and the WashU Summer Academy, Mr. Jacob was a lone gentleman among all the women there. Our girls are shining through. I wanted to thank the Affton Education Foundation for supporting all 5 of those juniors, whereas opposed they normally have done the 1 or 2 maybe. But to have all 5 is just an outstanding opportunity. One might even say phenomenal. And then lastly, just appreciation to our SROs. We renewed their contract, but I know that we've used them in not always good situations, but good and bad. But I've had the pleasure of meeting ours over the years, and they are outstanding individuals. And that's it. Thank you.
Mike?
It's just always good to be retiring debt. Gives us a lot of flexibility going forward. And it'll be really interesting to see how things stabilize after the next round of development in the area. It'll be really interesting to see what happens there. Also wanted to just say thank you to the Affton Education Foundation. Not too many school districts have a group like that with those kinds of resources that are investing in the kids, and it's a, you know, not every district has that opportunity, and sometimes we overlook it. But I know we got an event coming up for them. Hope a bunch of us will go to that. So that's all I've got.
So many great comments already. I think one of the things that is exciting to me tonight is kind of some dabbling in future conversations. So the retiring the debt and the opportunity that is opening up to continue to have new projects go forward and to start sort of dreaming some new dreams. And along those same lines, I think the virtual academy, I'm really interested to hear how those conversations start going with families. My kids are excited to be back in school in person, and I'm very excited to have them there. But I think we all know that for some kids, this has been a dream come true, and they really are thriving at home, and it's allowing kids who have different needs and goals to have new achievements. So I'm just excited for us to take a look at that and work with those families and sort of have a new individualized way of working with a group of kids who we haven't always been able to serve that well up until now. So I'm excited.
Thank you. And I just want to mention the vaccination event that's coming up, and so how wonderful it is that we're able to work with the Affton Medicine Shop to do that. And I think that's a great partnership, and they just jumped right in, and it went so well the last time. So Monday should go well again. It's great. Also, super excited about 43 nominations for the SOAR Awards this year. That's fantastic. It's great to see those nominations, and all of them deserve some recognition. So that's great. Service and outstanding achievement recognition. And I say this all the time, and I'm just honest about it. I so appreciate this board, the group of people that we have here. You're all outstanding and doing a great job, and just all of the great questions that you have, and really paying attention, and we support each other in some of the areas that I'm not as strong in. I know that I can turn to somebody else on the board who can help me understand it better, and our administrators as well. So very grateful and thankful for all of the volunteer service that you have provided onto our board for all of these years, several months. And so, on that note, I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to section 6100213. Is there a second?
Second.
And any discussion? Anybody not want to go into executive? That's a loaded question. All right, so the roll call vote. Justin?
Yes.
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 And I'm a yes. So we will go into executive session. It is about 5 to 9, so let's take 5 and I can give stuff that I need to declare. We can wrap up the technology. Stretch your legs. And we'll start it off.
All right.
All